Hello, welcome to Digital Ascendancy, Powerline Info podcast series. Here on Digital Ascendancy, we're all about championing transformative digital solutions. And today, on episode 18, we have a continuation of our previous podcast with HPE on AI. So why don't we jump right on in and join Curtis and Jordan as they continue their discussion.
Well, good afternoon, Jordan. Welcome back. We're in our second episode here of talking about AI and what's happening in the world of AI with HP and Powerland and Xerox and interesting times because we're just both together out in Vegas for the annual conference with HP Discover and a lot of exciting announcements that are really relevant to the conversation around AI. So I'd love to jump in with you and talk about that.
It was a really exciting week there. First ever keynote at the Sphere. It's cool to see Antonio on
That was
stage.
really cool, man. I have to admit, at first I was like, yeah, we'll see how good it is. And then I'm like, when I'm moving off my seat thinking I'm going over the mountains and stuff, I went, oh, this is good. Like, this is good tech.
Yeah, the visuals were incredible. But the announcements were pretty cool too. So yeah, it was awesome to see the announcement on private cloud AI. So we're really focused on the partnership with Nvidia, obviously, because Jensen was on stage with Antonio.
Yeah.
So really doubling down on that partnership and trying to differentiate in the market with a Green Lake offering that can start small and get people started with AI where they have control over it.
Let's talk about that a little bit because it does come up in a lot of conversations in our world, which is what is the difference between the HP Nvidia versus the HP slash competitor? Because I think everyone's will say, well, anybody can buy a box to throw a GPU in it, but there's a lot more in the recipe of what was announced with the private AI with HP. So can you talk about what that difference means?
Yeah, I think there's really two big things that make it different compared to, like you said, other companies that can buy NVIDIA GPUs, put them in the server, and then sell them to customers. The first thing is the software experience. So HPE, I mean, we've acquired 6 software companies in the AI space in the last 5 years. We've got a very large engineering team. We write a lot of code and we help people implement it, which basically means that you're not just getting the hardware, you're getting a control plane so you can manage it. You're getting uh, the whole stack integrated as a reference architecture. So we know, hey, this is going to work with the switches, with the storage that we're providing. And then you also get user interfaces to get started with. I think a lot of people they play around with, okay, I'm going to download the latest model that's been released publicly. I'm going to find a way to run it on the GPU, and now I have an API that's comparable to what I get with a public API. But you actually want some applications to get started with. You
Mhm.
want a chatbot that feels like using ChatGPT. You want a coding assistant that feels like using GitHub Copilot. You don't want to have to build all that stuff from scratch. And we provide it with that offering. So whether you're actually going to use that for all of the different AI services you're going to roll out over time is at least a reference to get started. And I think that just makes
So
everything a
how
lot easier.
turnkey is that? So if I'm a customer right now looking for that experience of like, wanting obviously to jump in and figure out how to quickly adopt AI to gain so many use cases, whether it's customer experience, efficiencies, all these things, is it like a point and shoot of my data into the HP AI private stack and I can start to run LLMs?
So absolutely, you can run LLMs. The claim is 3 clicks to run a new LLM. Could take some time to download the latest one, but it's going to be there
Yeah.
without any complexity. I think when it comes to adding your data, there's simple ways in which you can just click to upload a PDF, and then that's included in the prompt, and you can ask a question about it. There's other ways in which you can, copy and paste an email thread and say, please summarize this, or copy and paste some code. Please help me generate some new stuff. That's a certain way to add your data, and it remains confidential wherever you're running the PCAI system. That's the only place the data resides. It's not going to a public API. It's not traversing a potentially
That's a
insecure
big
network.
differentiator that again it gets underestimated and not talked about as much until you're in it when you're designing your architecture of the future, right? And controlling your data set and what you want to be, we'll call it hybrid data, right? What do you want public and what do you want private and why and what does that mean from both sides? Because there's obviously a use case for both and there's advantages to both.
Yeah, I think there's been a proliferation of software as a service that's happened recently. And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that using SaaS is a counterparty risk. Like you have to adopt the security posture of the software as a service provider if you're going to build your business on top of that. We've seen breaches with many public companies that build on top of other layers of a cake just to provide that simple service. And you know what? A lot of them, the service they provide, the features they provide, it's kind of got diminishing returns over time. You don't get, when you start using Facebook or Instagram as a consumer, you get network effects. In a business, you start using some new data warehouse or analytics application, you start using a coding assistant. It doesn't get better the more customers that business has.
I think that was a wake up call though with, the snowflake breach. We'll call it what it is, right? It's in public knowledge. I think that woke up a lot of people to the commitment of what it meant to these massive data lakes, and to your point, the layers, but the layers that you don't control. And when you don't control them, you now have exposure.
It's yeah, I don't want to hammer too much on another vendor that's like
No, you can't, but it's
security
in
and
the
stuff,
public
but the
lens of the strategy, right?
yeah, it gets people thinking about control. And I think
Correct.
control represents three things. Most importantly, where your data is. So some people, don't really think about counterparty risk stuff. They primarily focus on, just where the data is, like the data gravity problem. If my existing data set is in the data center, why not bring the AI to that data instead of having to move the data? That's number one. Number two is control over cost. If you're making an investment in something up front and you own the infrastructure, you don't pay per token, you don't pay per seat, you don't have a potential for the costs to explode if the project is successful. You have an understanding of how much this project is going to cost because I sized this to require 16 GPUs and that's what we have, right? People will claim that's inflexible and sure, you're limited on throughput until you add more GPUs, but that's a cost control people want when they think of rolling out a GitHub Copilot style
Mhm.
coding assistant to 1,000 developers across an organization. They don't want to have to just pay more every month every time somebody else gets excited and uses it and they need to pay for a new seat.
Well, and the thing too that's not talked about a lot though is just the GPU life cycle within the public cloud. So you're paying, a premium to have GPU access, but what GPU are you actually accessing? Which model? I guarantee you it's not the latest and greatest. So I believe the life cycle of hardware inside the public cloud is like 7 years minimum,
Yeah.
right? And so, when you then get back to that cost center, what does that mean to run that on-prem and then understand the predictability that, yeah, when I'm starting to hit in the bottlenecks, it's not hard to add more horsepower to it.
Yeah. Many public offerings that people will be familiar with they have technical debt. They want to sell cycles on the stuff that they already run. And a lot of them power their data centers without using green energy. I think a lot of people are waking up to a sustainability story in this space as well, with
Correct.
more of the the tier two clouds, what some people on the team have been calling the diaper scalers. They're
Right.
baby clouds getting
Yeah.
in there. But many of them are really just just extremely focused on AI, which means you're getting the best price for your GPUs. You're getting a sustainability story. It's wind or hydro or solar or other energy that's powering this thing, and you have in this case, a vendor that really cares about your success. Like they have a sales team that's going to pick up the phone. They're going to grow with you. They're very excited to be in this industry, as opposed to it being a little bit of a more of the same.
Yeah, and I think so. Kind of go full circle. The differentiator that HP has in regards to the partnership with Nvidia is a fully embedded stack from networking software layer to the infrastructure layer that can be turnkey, fully deployed. And that was to me the major announcement on stage at the Sphere.
Yeah, we want to be a partner for people who are building AI as it gets democratized,
That's a
to the
big statement of
businesses.
the people who are building AI. To me, I go, if you're not part of the AI journey, you're not going to be relevant in fast forward 3 to 5 years. Think of how much disruption is coming with people, how fast they're adopting and implementing an AI. If you're not at that pace, it's going to be interesting to fast forward time.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I'm excited to talk more about some of those use cases, how people are adopting AI. maybe we can save it for the next time we get together, next conversation.
That'd be awesome. I think, just to wrap up, I think let's talk about, who and how and why to engage HP from an AI journey. I think it's easy to default HP to a tier one top, obviously infrastructure vendor, but what makes customers want to pick up the phone and say, wait a second, HP has a conversation that's relevant to the AI journey?
Yeah, so I mean, it first starts with our community of partners like Powerland from Xerox. This is a company that's invested in the local community, that's there to show up, that cares about your business, that's aligned with you, and that just grows HPE as a organization incredibly well. Um, in terms of enablement, technically, like I said before, when you think about a complete solution, it includes hardware, it includes software, and it includes professional services. So being partnered with a company who's trying to make that POC or that pilot successful means that when it grows into production, they're excited, you're excited, the incentives are aligned, as opposed to let's start 5 different POCs, throw 4 of them out in a little bit, not sure which one's going to work, and the vendor on the other side of that equation is kind of making money no matter what you do, no matter how successful you are. In some cases, making more money if things get thrown out and something new comes along
Yeah,
behind
it's
it.
like
So
shelfware almost, right? They like to call it. It becomes shelfware, and they're not part of the journey. They're part of the transaction, and then they move on once the transaction's done.
exactly, yeah, we
That's one
want to
thing I
start
like about
small.
GreenLake is that the intimacy that you have with your customer on an ongoing basis, no matter what. Every month you meet with them, the GSM team, you review utilization, workflow, projects coming up, and it's just crazy to see how rapidly you can help customers transform by understanding, their timelines, their projects, and going, hey, we can just optimize this, and we can, then make this operationalized, and it helps bypass how fast they can make decisions, right? Because they're like, that's right. Just change request it, put it on, and move forward. And there's just so many good use cases about that. So yeah, I'm excited for our next episode to talk about that journey with the customers and what you're seeing, from your lens specifically, both global scale, but also at a regional scale at the Canadian side to help our customers adopt and see that. So I'm looking forward to the next conversation with you, Jordan.
All right, looking forward to it as well. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you for watching. And remember to like and subscribe. And hit the bell notification to get the latest and greatest videos from Powerland when they come out. Follow us on social media at Powerland_CA on Twitter, Powerland Canada on LinkedIn to hear about the latest and greatest in IT solutions.